Coming on here to give my thoughts on the PWI 500 list that just came out recently, I think earlier this week. Obviously, everyone that hasn't seen it yet and is seeing who number one is obviously going to be ranting about this within the IWC, within the YouTube wrestling community. And even though I do not like who they gave as number one, by default within this year, you kind of have to give it to them. And right here, this is who got number one. Triple H, yes, Triple H got number one in the PWI 500 for this year, 2009. And I would say by default, you have to give Triple H number one for PWI, even though there's maybe one or two people you could say that could be arguably number one over Triple H. But I think Triple H, now the way they do this with the PWI 500, what calendar year they base this on, they base it on from July 1st, 2008 to June 30th, 2009 of this year, and that's the calendar year they base it on. Now, they don't just base it on wrestling ability or what they do within the ring. There's many categories that they base each wrestler on. They base it on, kind of what company you are in, kind of, really gives you what you are, because obviously if you're in WWE or TNA, you have more of a chance to get a higher number than someone within Ring of Honor, the independent scenes, Japan, or Mexico. So with that all in place right there, Triple H, out of all the wrestlers that you could possibly say that could be number one, by default this year, he kind of gets it now. Anyone that hasn't seen the list of the PWI 500, I will put the link in the description for a website that shows 1 through 500, because obviously within this video, I'm not going to go through every single one. What I'm mainly doing, I'm going to go through the top 50. Then after that, I'm going to kind of go through, people that I think people will want to know where they were placed on the list, and just some thoughts on that as well. But most of it, I'm going to go through the top 50. Then, after that, selective wrestlers and selective numbers that I'll be going through after that. So what Triple H, the reason why he got number one, obviously he's been multiple world champion within this past calendar year that they count. He had the feud with Randy Orton that even though the matches didn't deliver, Triple H was the main focus of Raw. When he was on SmackDown, he was the main focus on Raw of SmackDown as well. So with that, within a span of the year, he was top guy on SmackDown and a top guy on Raw and a world champion on both sides. So with that and what he's done in WWE, you kind of have to give him by default, even though there's probably two others that you could arguably say might be worthy of number one. Which number two, you could possibly argue maybe deserves to be number one over Triple H, but there's a certain reason why Triple H probably gets it above him, and that is Chris Jericho. Now, Chris Jericho, he was world champion, I think, either 2 or 3 times within the span of the year that they're counting. And he had the excellent feud with Rey Mysterio. He had the thing with the Legends at WrestleMania. He had Steamboat come back for one last match. Had him take on one-on-one at a pay-per-view. And Chris Jericho, he's done a lot within this year as well, but he kind of fell off from being in the main eventers to the mid-carders. So obviously with that in place right there, that probably is the reason why Triple H obviously gets it above him. Number 3 is John Cena. Now, John Cena, unless he's out for a whole entire year, or 75% of the year, he's always going to be in the top 5 no matter what, even though I would say he hasn't really done too much within this year. I would have put him in the top 5 just because of marketability purposes, but I probably would have put him a step or two lower than what he got at number 3, just due to the fact he really hasn't done too much. Yes, he was world champion 2 times. He was in a match at WrestleMania, won the World Heavyweight title, had the match with Edge, where Edge won the world title, and really hasn't done too much to really deserve to be in top 3 other than his marketability factor. And obviously he's the most well-known wrestler nowadays, as far as obviously he's not up to the caliber as being well-known like a Rock or a Hogan or an Austin during the Attitude Era or during the peak of Hulkamania. But within this era of wrestling, he's obviously the most known wrestler that people outside of the wrestling industry and people that aren't wrestling fans will even know who John Cena is to some degree. Not to a degree of Hogan or Rock, but to somewhat of a degree. Number 4 is Edge. Now, I probably would have switched up the positioning that Edge and John Cena did. I probably maybe would have even questioned that Edge could have maybe been number 2, because but the one thing that the problem is with Edge always has these very short title reigns, these transitional title reigns that, sure, right now he's close to being a 10-time world champion, and he's only, been the first world championship he won was in January 2006, so yes, sure, he's been, multiple world champion, and if he keeps going on this route, it wouldn't shock me if he gets close to Flair's title reigns, but he really hasn't had that many title reigns that really, matter or really mean anything other than probably one or two within his title reigns that he has had since he's been a 9-time world champion. But Edge has done a lot with him this year. You could maybe argue that he could be 2 or 3, or maybe some people might even argue he could be number 1 over Triple H, but like I said, Triple H was the most dominant out of these guys that were on top 5. Now, number 5 is Randy Orton. Now, PWI, they did note that obviously during this calendar year that they're counting, Randy Orton was out with an injury, so obviously that takes him from not being at number 1. Now, they said if he wasn't out with the injury that he suffered at One Night Stand 2008 when he had the match with Triple H and injured his collarbone, if he wasn't out injured, most likely Randy Orton would have been number 1, and he would have repeated as PWI 500 number 1 for 2 years straight if he wasn't out with the injury. Number 6 was Nigel McGuinness. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this is probably the highest that a Ring of Honor, former Ring of Honor champion and a Ring of Honor competitor has got on a PWI list at number 6. Because I think even Samoa Joe, when he was working both TNA and Ring of Honor, and I kind of said, since he was working TNA at the same time, he wasn't a full, just Ring of Honor guy, and he got, I think, number 8 or 9 one year, maybe even 7 or something, but I think this is the highest that just a guy working primarily in Ring of Honor has got this high, so that's definitely good. Obviously, within the last 2 months from pretty much April 2009 up until the end of the calendar year that they're counting up till June 30th of this year, he really hasn't done much, but what he did during mostly those other 10 months definitely deserves him being at number 6. Number 7, I'm kind of surprised, but I'm glad to see him in the top 10, and that's Hiroshi Tanahashi. Probably one of my favorite Japanese wrestlers. Either him or Kenta, they pretty much both go back and forth of which one I like the most, so definitely glad to see him at number 7. Number 8 is CM Punk. He was a World Heavyweight Champion 2 times within the span of the year that they're counting right here, so with that, and CM Punk's, been doing pretty good with WWE, so definitely glad to see him at number 8. Number 9, now when I first saw it, I kind of questioned how did he get at number 9, and number 9 was Sting. Sting got at number 9. Now, the reason why they said he got number 9 was mainly due to the fact that, okay, he's the longest reigning TNA champion that doesn't count the NWA era. That he's the longest reigning TNA champion, after TNA and the National Wrestling Alliance broke their ties, and he was a World Heavyweight Champion for 189 days. He had the little feud with Kurt Angle and the whole thing with the Main Event Mafia going against them and other things within TNA that gave him being at number 9. He defeated Samoa Joe at Bound for Glory last year, beat AJ Styles in November. I think that was at the Turning Point pay-per-view last November. So with that in case, obviously I think number 9 is a little too high, but definitely you had to put him in the top 15 pretty much, but maybe would have been a few positions a little too high. Number 10 was Ultimo Guerrero. Now, people that aren't familiar with AAA or don't really catch up or don't really follow AAA, or not AAA, but CMLL, with Ultimo Guerrero, most people remember him for what he did in TNA at the Victory Road 2008 and the World X Cup last year, so that's the main thing people remember him from. Number 11 is Undertaker. Now, Undertaker, he's pretty much one of those wrestlers that isn't ever there full time, so this is kind of got to question him getting number 11. But he is one of WWE's most known stars, and he's probably one of the most marketable guys within WWE. So that in factor, and plus some of the things, we had the TLC match against Edge, had the incredible Hell in the Cell match at SummerSlam 2008, and had the feud with Big Show that was very piss poor, but it was a main focus on SmackDown for a little bit, was when he had that feud with Big Show, had the match with Shawn Michaels that a lot of people consider one of the greatest matches of this year. I think it's a good match. I think some people overrated it, but that's just my opinion of that match. Still a great match no matter what. But with some of that, and he hasn't really, he always takes breaks. Number 11 might be giving him a little too much. Number 12 was Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle, obviously, he's one of the main faces in TNA that is probably the main face of the company. A lot of people make the joke of TNA is total nonstop Angle, and even though Angle's a great wrestler, I think sometimes TNA does give him a little too much attention, but I can't really blame him. He is a great performer in the ring, and he is a well-known star as well that's from former WWE star, and he's probably actually one of the very few guys that's, you know, a veteran within TNA. I don't really mind TNA using too much, but sometimes they do use him a little too much. Number 13 is Jeff Hardy. Now, a lot of you know that I'm not the hugest Jeff Hardy fan. Now, I respect him for what he does in the ring. I think he's a very entertaining wrestler. Now, he's not a great in-ring performer. He's more of like an entertaining wrestler, and I think he knows that. And I think most Jeff Hardy fans, most diehard Jeff Hardy fans, will even admit that Jeff Hardy isn't a great wrestler. He's a great entertainer, and he's entertaining to watch. I think you could even argue, and I'm not the hugest Jeff Hardy fan, I think you could maybe argue that Jeff Hardy could have possibly been arguable to be in the top 10 of the PWI this year. Number 14 was Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels, just like Triple H, kind of took, not like Triple H, but like Undertaker, took a few breaks within here and hasn't been seen since WrestleMania 25 up until he's going to obviously return at SummerSlam with Triple H, teaming up with, making a DX reunion against Legacy, but we haven't seen him since then, and I think he took maybe another break within that year as well. But, you know, Shawn Michaels, just like Undertaker, one of the main guys in WWE that's been there throughout the years, and obviously is still, you know, very marketable, and a lot of people still like him to this day. And number 15 is Kaiju Muto, aka the Great Muta, his other persona that he does, Kaiju Muto, and definitely deserves to be a number 15. A huge fan of him. I had pretty much always been a fan of him. Number 16 is Batista. Now, Batista, okay, had the match with John Cena at SummerSlam last year. Had, I think, one or two, maybe three, maybe even three, or multiple. I know he had multiple World Heavyweight Championship reigns within this year. So obviously number 16. I think he was I think, you know, he was out injured during some portion of this, so that's probably why he got it number 16 only. Number 17, kind of surprised me he got in the top 20, but glad to see it, and that's Tyler Black. Tyler Black is definitely one of the most young wrestlers nowadays. It's probably one of the most impressive wrestlers to watch. Definitely see big things coming from him within the upcoming year, and hopefully within, you know, by the end of the year or early next year, hopefully he wins the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Championship, because I'm afraid if they wait too long, they're going to do the same thing TNA did with Samoa Joe, is wait too long for him to become World Heavyweight Champion. So hopefully they don't wait too long. Obviously, there's rumors Ring of Honor might be doing a live pay-per-view at some point, so that'd be a good moment for him to win the World Heavyweight title. If they're waiting on for that to get finalized, you know, a live pay-per-view, I'm all well and fine if they wait till then, but hopefully they don't wait too long where it's pretty much meaningless when he wins the World Heavyweight Championship. Number 18, he jumped up really high in the list, and this is Jack Swagger, and I think the same thing's going to happen to him next year. I think WWE is going to do a lot with him within this upcoming year. I don't know if he's going to be World Heavyweight Champion, but I definitely see WWE pushing slowly towards him being a main event wrestler, and definitely going for the title and contending for the title. Don't necessarily know if they would have him win the title, but I think they would have him contend for it. Number 19 is AJ Styles. I'm a huge fan of AJ Styles. Definitely one of my favorite wrestlers, and probably one of my favorite wrestlers within TNA. But the thing is, I don't know if he even deserves being in the top 20, because he really hasn't done much. Same with number 20, Matt Hardy. Other than the feud he had with Jeff Hardy, what has Matt Hardy done other than being ECW champion within this year that actually makes him worthy of being in the top 20? Number 21 was Jeff Jarrett. Now, Jeff Jarrett, he had the feud with Kurt Angle and had the thing with him joining the front line, so I guess arguably you could say maybe 21 is... he deserves being there, but I think it's a little too high. I think he should have been in the range of 30 to 40, maybe like number 35, something like that. Number 22 is Blue Demon Jr. Now, this is the one Lucha Star and NWA World Champion I really do not like at all. I don't understand why the NWA has him as World Heavyweight Champion. I don't see anything good about him. I've seen, you know, the 2 times that he was in Ring of Honor. Seen some of his stuff he did in the NWA and some of the stuff he's done down in Mexico as well, and I haven't seen anything enjoyable about him, and 22 is definitely pushing it as far as how high he got on this list. Number 23 is the current Ring of Honor champion. Austin Aries definitely deserves being there. Number 24 is Nakamura. Now, this is one thing that really surprised me. Nakamura got number 24, but later on the list, which I'll get to, Kenta got very low, to my opinion. I think he should have got a whole lot higher. Number 25, this is one thing, maybe top 50, okay, maybe top 50 you could argue, since he was in two big WWE feuds, but number 25 is really pushing it, and that's the Big Show. Big Show has been nothing more than pretty much a jobber to the main eventers. Now, he had the feud with Undertaker, and he had the feud with John Cena, but both of those times he was pretty much, you know, treated as a bitch. He was pretty much a jobber the whole entire time, and he hasn't really done much to say he deserves being number 25 on, you know, the list of PWI. I haven't seen anything that really says why he needs to be at this number at all. Top 50 you could possibly argue, but number 25 is definitely pushing it a whole lot. Number 26 was Rey Mysterio. 27 is Bryan Danielson. Now, Bryan Danielson fell a couple spots. Now, I'm a huge fan of Bryan Danielson. Definitely understand why they had him drop a few spots, because he's obviously, you know, still, you know, great in-ring performer. He's definitely probably one of the best in the world. Not only just his gimmick, but he actually is one of the best in the world going today as far as professional wrestling goes. But I understand why they had him drop a few spots, because he really hasn't done too much to, you know, he hasn't been Ring of Honor champion anymore. He really hasn't done too much within Ring of Honor as far as, you know, actually succeeding something other than, you know, putting on excellent matches. Number 28 is Christian, obviously going to WWE. He fell down 14 spots. He was 14 last year, 28 this year. I don't know. Obviously, it might be a little too early to say Christian made the bad move to go to WWE. Maybe they're just slowly wanting to build him up, and since obviously he was gone for a couple years before he went back to WWE, so maybe they're slowly doing it. But right now, it's looking like Christian did the bad move of going back to WWE. 29 is Samoa Joe. Number 30 is Suicide. Suicide, you know, obviously got on this list because TNA has done so much with that, you know, character that just came from a video game that made it into a wrestler. So they've done so much with it, I can't really argue that they put it at number 30. 31 is Shelton Benjamin. Number 32 is Alex Shelley. Alex Shelley was X Division champion. He's done, you know, some stuff in PWG with Chris Sabin, with Motor Machine Gun, stuff in Japan as well. So some stuff within TNA got him at number 32, but I'll say, you know, him being X Division champion and some of the stuff he's done outside of TNA is the main reason why they gave him number 32. Might have been, you know, since he hasn't accomplished too much, might have been, you know, 3 or 4 steps a little too high for him, though, I would say, even though I'm a huge fan of him. Number 33 is MVP. Number 34 is Mick Foley. I would like to argue that Mick Foley doesn't deserve to be at number 34, but TNA has done so much with him since he's joined TNA Wrestling that you kind of have to give him number 34. He's been world champion. He's been like one of the main focal points of TNA this last year, unfortunately. And, you know, Mick Foley is well past his prime, and I think he's, you know, tarnishing his legacy for what he's doing within TNA. Number 35 is Kofi Kingston. 36 is Mystico. Now, Mystico, I think he was injured during this portion at some point, so that's the reason why he's only at number 36. He's kind of fallen off to being as marketable as he was about a year or two ago, where he was very marketable. That he was probably back then, you know, still he's very marketable in Mexico, but I don't think he's as marketable to the degree as he once was. No, number 37 is Kane. Just like Big Show, I don't know why they got in the top 50. Kane, what has he done? 38 is Booker T. Same Booker T, other than being a legend champion, what has he really accomplished that deserves him being at number 38? Number 39 is Macias, a.k.a. Judas Macias. Number 40 is Jerry Lynn. Now, Jerry Lynn definitely deserves this. He has really shown that he's one of those wrestlers at his age. He can still go in there and perform very good matches within Ring of Honor, and did a good job as Ring of Honor champion. Definitely knew he wasn't going to hold that title too long. He was somewhat, some people might say, transitional champion, even though he held it for 2.5 months, but arguably some people like that. You kind of could say it was somewhat of a transitional title reign from, you know, when Nigel McGuinness lost and now Austin Aries is world champion. That was kind of like a transitional title reign in between right there for him, but still, he's a very good wrestler for his age. Number 41 was William Regal. Coming in at number 42 was Jun Akiyama. 43 is Brother Ray. This is one thing I really got to question. Why did Team 3D even get in the top 50? What have they really accomplished to deserve them to get in the top 50? Ted DiBiase Jr. got number 44. See big things coming from him next year. Definitely see if WWE does a good job with his face turn and utilize him as well as I hope they do. he could possibly be in the top 20, maybe the top 25 next year if they utilize him in a good way. Number 45 is Mark Henry. 46 is John Morrison, just like Ted DiBiase Jr. See a lot of good things coming out of John Morrison. John Morrison, I don't know, probably within the next year, I will not be surprised if he's world champion. I don't think he's going to be world champion anytime by the end of this year, but I would not be surprised sometime next year, early next year, maybe mid next year, he will be world heavyweight champion on the SmackDown brand. It definitely looks like they're slowly building him up to being that. And, you know, he's defeated, I think, Jeff Hardy when he was world champion. He's defeated CM Punk when CM Punk was world champion. So he's been doing a lot of good stuff on SmackDown. So definitely see some good things coming from him. Number 47 is Finlay. 48 is Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, I feel when Legacy breaks up, he's pretty much just going to be, you know, Randy Orton's little bitch. That's pretty much what he's going to be. Or if he doesn't do that, he's pretty much just going to be a lower mid-card jobber, just because I don't see much from him. Obviously, you know, being son of Dusty Rhodes, you would think he would be able to, you know, perform a better promo than what he does. He's very piss poor on the mic. He has a very generic look within the ring, and his in-ring work isn't even that good. So I don't see, you know, anything more than, you know, a mid-card wrestler or, you know, a lower mid-card jobber within his future. Might be wrong. Maybe he, you know, improves his mic skills, improves his wrestling skills, and gets a little better, you know, look, you know, better attire or something, because he really needs, you know, a complete turnaround as far as his character if he actually wants to go anywhere other than being stuck in the mid-card for his whole entire career. Number 49 is Brother Devon, just like Brother Ray Donis, and why they got in the top 50. Number 50 is Jimmy Jacobs. Now I'm just going to go through after the top 50. I'm just going to go through, you know, random ones right now, ones that I just want to throw out, you know, where they were positioned on the list. 51 kind of really surprised me. He got at number 51, and that's Adam Pearce. I mean, Adam Pearce, sure, during this time, he did have that feud with Brennan Albright over the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. He was NWA World Champion 2 times within this time. He lost the title to Blue Demon Jr., but other than that, and being Booker for Ring of Honor since October, what has he really done? I know he's probably done, you know, some, you know, small independents and maybe a few things for the NWA National Wrestling Alliance, but he really hasn't done much to say, okay, he deserves being at number 51. 52 is Chris Sabin. 55 is Robert Roode. Now, this is what I would have done. I would have had where Team 3D were positioned. I would have had Beer Money positioned in the route where they got 55 was Robert Roode, so that's where I would have replaced him at where Brother Ray got. And then 56 was the Miz. 58 Daniels. I'm a huge fan of Daniels, but he hasn't really done much within this last year. But obviously, you know, like I said, people that work in WWE and TNA have a better chance of getting on higher. Like, say if, you know, someone outside of WWE and TNA, say someone within Ring of Honor, within Japan, or independent scenes, or in Mexico, had the same type of accomplishments as, you know, Daniels had, they would barely probably even get in the top 150, but since Daniels works in TNA, that kind of gets him right there, but he hasn't really done much. Now, 59 is the other member at Beer Money, James Storm, so like I said, I would have had Robert Roode and James Storm positioned where Team 3D were, and put the members of Team 3D where Robert Roode and James Storm got on this list. I maybe would even put them a little higher than what Team 3D got. I would have put them within the positions of 40 to 50, though I wouldn't have put them in the 30s, I do not think. Number 61 was Roderick Strong. 62 is Brian Kendricks. Now, Brian Kendricks obviously had that, you know, mega push last summer where right before Unforgiven, he was kind of positioned close to looking like they were actually going to somewhat maybe slowly give him a main event push. Then he got squashed in that scramble match. It really didn't do anything after that other than pretty much be a complete jobber on SmackDown. Then he got on Raw. Now he's released from WWE. So really got a question, why did he get it at number 62? Number 63 was Evan Bourne. Evan Bourne, you know, is very entertaining wrestler, good within the ring. He's definitely very over with the crowd, so definitely understand why he got it 63. 64 was Carlito. 66 is Hernandez. 67 was Claudio Castagnoli. Chris Hero got it number 70. 73 was Tyson Kidd. Now 74, this is what I really got to disagree with. I said earlier, Kenta got very low. He got it number 74. What Kenta has done, you know, just this year alone should deserve him to be higher, you know, than 74. Definitely in the top 50s. And he did a lot of stuff last year good as well. So I do not understand how he did not get at least maybe top 25, just because I like him a lot, maybe might be a little biased, but I think he definitely deserved to be in the top 25. He's done so much. Definitely a whole lot higher than 74. He definitely deserved to be a whole lot higher than 74. I think a lot of people will agree with that. That's one of the things within the top 100 I really, really disagree with, is Kenta being at 74. 77 was Davey Richards. Just like Ted DiBiase Jr. and John Morrison, see a lot of stuff good coming from him next year. Maybe even a future Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion right there with Davey Richards. I think he's definitely worthy of it. He's doing a good job with his tag team, the American Wolves, with Eddie Edwards, and possibly within next year, after that tag team's run its course, maybe have him be Ring of Honor World Champion. I definitely would not mind seeing that happen at some point within the year. Number 79 was Homicide. Number 81 was Jay Briscoe. He got a whole lot higher than his brother, Mark Briscoe, which Mark got at 107, mainly due to the fact that Mark Briscoe was out injured like he always is. Number 83 was Jay Lethal. 86 was Matt Morgan. TNA is starting to utilize him a lot, so expect to see him pretty high on the list next year. Expect maybe in the top 50. Don't know how far they would push him. Number 89 was Brett Albright. Brett Albright is definitely one of my favorites in Ring of Honor. Definitely understand why he got an 89. Really can't say he deserved to be, real high, or maybe a few more spots higher, but not too higher. Then number 90, JTG of Crime Time. 91, Marufuji. 92, Eddie Edwards. Been a huge fan of Eddie Edwards probably since 06 or 07, since I first saw him in Pro Wrestling Noah. And I'm definitely glad, that he's doing a good job in Ring of Honor, teaming up with Davey Richards, and see some good stuff coming from him next year as well. So definitely glad. I think this is the first time he actually got on this list. Number 95 was Shad Gaspar, the other member of Crime Time. 96, Abyss. 100 is Takeshi Morishima. Now that's the end of the top 100. Now there's just a few more I'm going to go through. Like I said, you can look at the description. You'll see a link for a website that will have all 1 through 500, where you can see, 1 through 500 in total, to see where, what wrestler got placed where, and what you agree with, what you disagree with. Just leave your comments for that. And number 107, like I said, Mark Briscoe got. 1010, Virno got. 113, Dolph Ziggler. Everyone knows I'm not a fan of him. But I can't say that he's not going to be higher next year, because WWE unfortunately sees something in him. I do not see anything in him. He has a very bad look to him. I think the gimmick he has is very bad. The name hurts him, in my opinion, and he's not good in the ring either. I mean, he has a sweet enziguri. I'll give him that. He has a fucking sweet-ass enziguri, but other than that, he doesn't have anything that really spells out, this guy's going to be the future of WWE, at least in my opinion. I know some people like him, but I just haven't seen anything with him. But, hey, there was one point I didn't see anything in Jack Swagger, but, after his matches with Christian and his appearance on Raw, where they did the match with John Cena, he really started flourishing as, showing that he has the potential to be a top star. Maybe Dolph Ziggler to do that at some point, but he hasn't done that yet, to me at least. Number 114 was SEMA. Now, unfortunately, no Dragon Gate stars, I think, got in the top 100. Last year, I know SEMA, I think he was placed at 46. This year, he's placed at 114. So, unfortunately, no Dragon Gate stars got placed in the top 100. Hopefully, with them getting the pay-per-view deal and the U.S. expansion, hopefully that'll give Dragon Gate a little more exposure. Maybe next year you see, some Dragon Gate stars, higher than what they are this year, because definitely I think that will help them get a little exposure. I mean, hell, Shikara is starting to get a little more exposure as far as the PWI list goes, because I remember at one point, a lot of the guys in Shikara were, barely cracking the, 380s or, 400s and getting within there, but now, a lot of them got in the 200s. I don't know if anyone got in the 100 to 200, but there were a lot that got in the 200s and 300s as well, so they're starting to get a little more exposure as far as the PWI 500 list goes. 118 got Great Khali. 120 is Go Shiozaki, current GHC World Heavyweight Champion of Pro Wrestling Noah, so definitely see him getting higher next year as well. He's been doing pretty good as GHC World Heavyweight Champion. Number 128 was the Rookie Doi. 162 was Paul London. Now, Paul London right now, he's working pretty much California-based indies. He's working PWG. Love to see him either go to Ring of Honor or TNA. Hopefully, if he went to either one, they would utilize him very well. I think Ring of Honor would. TNA, a little questionable. I don't know if they would use him. Or maybe, you got Dragon Gate USA. I know Spanky's going to be doing the September pay-per-view taping for Dragon Gate USA. That'd be good to see them reunite. Maybe have them on one of the Dragon Gate pay-per-views take on the Young Bucks, or do that in PWG, because that's one tag match I would think would be an incredible tag match. Or get them in Ring of Honor and have them take on the Briscoes. That would be excellent to see. Number 163 was El Generico. 167, Jack Evans. Jack Evans has been doing pretty good down in AAA in Mexico. The other person he teams up with or takes on and feuds with sometimes got it in 197, Teddy Hart. 98 is Caval, a.k.a. Low Key. Definitely can't wait to see him come up to WWE. I think right now at this point, I think he's still injured. He mainly got in the top 200, mainly just because he was IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion for the New Japan Pro Wrestling promotion, and did a few things within Florida Championship Wrestling as well before he got injured. Now, just got a few more. 229 is the first member of the Young Bucks, Matt Jackson. 235 is the other member of the Young Bucks, Nick Jackson. I see a lot of things coming from them within the next year. I think a lot of people are, really looking forward to see what they're going to do in Ring of Honor. They're a good, mix of the Hardy Boys and the Rockers. Everyone, is always going to compare them to that, and I think they are a very enjoyable tag team. Are very good within the ring, and definitely, have very good chemistry with each other, and make it a great tag team. So definitely can't wait to see what they do within the next year, especially since Ring of Honor is starting to actually bring them in now and start utilizing them. Can't wait to see how great the match is against the Briscoes and Young Bucks that's coming up in September at one of the, I think it's in Dayton, Ohio. I think it's one of the Dayton shows. So that's one match I've been waiting to see for a long time. Now, 247, Mike Quackenbush. Just want to throw him out there because huge fan of Mike Quackenbush. He's one of the main reasons why I do check out Shakara. Now, I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of Shakara. Now, they do a little too over-the-top comedy for me at some points, but hey, it's original. I'll give them that. It's something that you don't see in any other company. It's very original, so I'll give them that. And they actually, have some good, wrestlers within there, and I like the, lucha style as well that they, bring to the U.S. You really don't see that much within the U.S. as far as, very good, lucha style wrestling. X Division kind of used to do it, but they kind of lost it, and Shakara does a good job with that, I would say. But some of the stuff's a little too over the top for me to say I love the promotion. But I think it's a good promotion no matter what. Now, number 341, BXB Hulk. Him along with Sema and Dragon Kid are probably my favorite guys from the Dragon Gate organization. Now, some wrestlers got in the 400s that are notable that I at least know who they are. Number 408 is Kirby Mack. He's one half of Team Maction. And 116 is his other partner, his brother TJ Mack. They team up as the Team Maction. Now, I mainly know them just because I'm from Virginia. They wrestle in the Mid-Atlantic area in Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina. I think they're a tag team that, if Ring of Honor ever catches notice of them, or TNA, or even WWE, they're kind of like the London and Spanky. That's probably the way you could, explain how they are, and they definitely work very good as a tag team. I haven't seen, tons of matches from them, but from what I've seen, I pretty much enjoy them. I've seen them live, I think 1 or 2 times at a UWF/TNA show, or just a UWF show one or 2 times, and enjoyed seeing them in action, and they're definitely a very enjoyable tag team. I would love to see, Ring of Honor or TNA to catch notice of them, because I definitely think they got the ability to work in those promotions. I don't know if it's, they haven't, worked in those promotions because they don't want to travel too much. They just kind of want to work around, the Virginia area, Maryland, and North Carolina, and maybe South Carolina at times. But they're definitely a good tag team. One interesting thing came in at number 482. Have never seen them wrestle, but it's interesting. Matt Sydal, aka Evan Bourne, his brother Mike Sydal is actually started wrestling in the independent scenes right now on the independent circuit. Haven't seen him yet. I might actually try to see if I could find any clips from him on YouTube. Definitely be interested to see how he works. From what PWI listed as far as what he is like as far as his wrestling skills, he's pretty much like has the same type of aerial ability that his brother Matt Sydal, aka Evan Bourne, has. So that'd be interesting to see how he is. Since Evan Bourne's very over with WWE, don't know, maybe Mike Sydal, maybe he'll do the same thing Evan Bourne did, have him go work on the independent scene for a little bit, go to Ring of Honor, develop his craft there, go to Japan, kind of improve himself, then maybe end up in WWE and maybe do something with his brother Matt Sydal. Haven't seen him yet, so I can't really say if he's good or not. Within the 400s, you got the Dark City Fight Club of Corey Chavis and Don Chavis, and it's always interesting to see who got number 500, because there's always, a very funny name that always gets 500, or some ridiculous ass wrestling name that always gets 500, or someone you're never ever going to hear from ever again other than getting 500. So this will probably be the one time that I'll probably ever mention this wrestler, or probably anyone will ever notice this name of this wrestler, unless he changes his gimmick or does something, or gets noticed, or he's actually good and just happens to be at 500. And that's Shockwave the Robot. Yes, Shockwave the Robot. That's who got number 500. So congratulations to you, Shockwave the Robot, for getting number 500. So just wanted to come on here, throw out my thoughts on the PWI 500 list as well. So with that, within a span of the year, he was top guy on SmackDown and a top guy on Raw and a world champion on both sides. So with that and what he's done in WWE, you kind of have to give him by default, even though there's probably two others that you could arguably say might be worthy of number one. Which number two, you could possibly argue maybe deserves to be number one over Triple H, but there's a certain reason why Triple H probably gets it above him, and that is Chris Jericho. Now, Chris Jericho, he was world champion, I think, either 2 or 3 times within the span of the year that they're counting. And he had the excellent feud with Rey Mysterio. He had the thing with the Legends at WrestleMania. He had Steamboat come back for one last match. Had him take on one-on-one at a pay-per-view. And Chris Jericho, he's done a lot with the 500. What calendar year they base this on? They base it on from July 1st, 2008 to June 30th, 2009 of this year, and that's the calendar year they base it on. Now, they don't just base it on wrestling ability or what they do within the ring. There's many categories that they base each wrestler on. They base it on, kind of what company you are in, kind of, really gives you what you are, because obviously if you're in WWE or TNA, you have more of a chance to get a higher number than someone within Ring of Honor, the independent scenes, Japan, or Mexico. So with that all in place right there, Triple H, out of all the wrestlers that you could possibly say that could be number one by default this year, he kind of gets it now. Anyone that hasn't seen the list of the PWI 500, I will put the link in the description for a website that shows 1 through 500, because obviously within this video I'm not going to go through every single one. What I'm mainly doing, I'm going to go through the top 50, then after that I'm going to kind of go through people that I think people will want to know where they were placed on the list, and just some thoughts on that as well. But most of it I'm going to go through the top 50, then after that selective wrestlers and selective numbers that I'll be going through after that. So what Triple H, the reason why he got number one, obviously he's been multiple world champion within this past calendar year that they count. He had the feud with Randy Orton that, even though the matches didn't deliver, Triple H was the main focus of Raw. When he was on SmackDown, he was the main focus on Raw of SmackDown. As coming on here to give my thoughts on the PWI 500 list that just came out recently, I think earlier this week. Obviously, everyone that hasn't seen it yet and is seeing who number one is obviously going to be ranting about this within the IWC, within the YouTube wrestling community. And even though I do not like who they gave as number one by default within this year, you kind of have to give it to them. And right here, this is who got number one. Triple H. Yes, Triple H got number one in the PWI 500 for this year, 2009. And I would say by default, you have to give Triple H number one for PWI, even though there's maybe 1 or 2 people you could say that could be arguably number one over Triple H. But I think Triple H, now the way they do this with the PWI this year as well, but he kind of fell off from being in the main eventers to the mid-carders. So obviously with that, in place right there. That probably is the reason why Triple H obviously gets it above him. Number 3 is John Cena. Now, John Cena, unless he's out for a whole entire year or 75% of the year, he's always going to be in the top 5 no matter what, even though I would say he hasn't really done too much within this year. I would have put him in the top 5 just because of marketability purposes, but I probably would have put him a step or two lower than what he got at number 3, just due to the fact he really hasn't done too much. Yes, he was world champion 2 times. He was in a match at WrestleMania, won the World Heavyweight title, had the match with Edge, where Edge won the world title, and really hasn't